It was an ordinary January morning in 2005 when the quiet streets of Glendale, a suburb of Los Angeles, were about to witness one of the deadliest train accidents in the history of California. The sun had barely risen, the air was crisp, and the city seemed calm, unaware of the tragedy about to unfold. Juan Manuel Álvarez, a 25-year-old laborer from Compton, California, was at the center of what would become a shocking story etched into the memories of the victims' families and the entire nation. What drove a man to cause a disaster that claimed 11 innocent lives? That is the question that haunted everyone involved. Álvarez, a father of two, had been battling personal demons, struggling with marital difficulties, and wrestling with his own mental health. Some said he was addicted to methamphetamine and prone to delusional thoughts. Others described him as someone quietly teetering on the edge, silently desperate. But no one could have predicted the horrifying choice he would make that day. In the early hours of January 26th, Álvarez drove his sport utility vehicle, soaked in gasoline, to a seemingly ordinary set of railroad tracks near Chevy Chase Drive. The location was mundane, almost banal, with a Costco retail store nearby and industrial buildings lining the streets. Yet, this ordinary backdrop would soon transform into a scene of chaos and devastation. With chilling calmness, Álvarez parked his SUV directly on the tracks and stepped back, leaving a vehicle that would soon change the lives of hundreds forever. What exactly went through his mind? Was it a suicide attempt gone awry, or a calculated act of destruction? Álvarez later claimed that he intended to take his own life but fled the vehicle before the collision. Police and investigators questioned every detail, trying to understand the motives behind his inexplicable actions. As the clock struck 6:03 a.m., the first of the trains appeared, southbound Metrolink commuter train number 100, carrying hundreds of early morning passengers. The train, moving at full speed, had no chance of stopping. The passengers, mostly commuters heading into downtown Los Angeles, had no idea that their lives were about to be irrevocably changed in a matter of seconds. Álvarez watched from a distance as the train slammed into his SUV. The impact sent metal and debris flying, and the train itself began to derail, careening out of control. Cars of the train jackknifed it, colliding with a stationary Union Pacific freight train parked nearby, and sideswiping a northbound Metrolink train approaching on the adjacent track. The chain reaction was catastrophic. 11 innocent lives were extinguished instantly, and nearly 200 others were injured, some critically. Their mornings shattered in a violent explosion of metal, smoke, and chaos. The victims were ordinary people, each with their own stories, families, and dreams. Manuel Alcala, 51, a resident of West Hills, Los Angeles, never returned home. Julia Bennett, 44, from Simi Valley, was taken from her loved ones in an instant. Henry Kylinski, Scott McEwen, Thomas Ormiston, William Parent, Leonard Romero, Deputy James Tutino, Don Wiley, Alfonso Caballero, and Elizabeth Hill. Their names would forever be remembered as the faces of a tragedy that should never have happened. Some were on their way to work, others simply traveling through the city, unaware that fate had marked this day as their last. Their deaths were sudden, brutal, and senseless, a grim reminder of how quickly life can change, and how fragile the line between safety and disaster truly is. In the immediate aftermath, emergency responders rushed to the scene. Employees of the nearby Costco were among the first to call 911 and scale fences to help the victims. The sight was unimaginable. Twisted metal, smoke, and the cries of the injured filled the air. Álvarez, meanwhile, had already disappeared from the tracks, wandering nearby streets, repeating, I'm sorry," seemingly dazed and detached from the destruction he had caused. Police quickly tracked him down to a friend's house in Atwater Village, not far from the crash site. He was arrested, charged with 11 counts of murder with special circumstances, and eventually convicted. Prosecutors sought the death penalty, but he was ultimately sentenced to 11 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. The trial revealed a chilling portrait of a man caught between despair and dangerous intentions, a man whose actions would reverberate through countless lives for decades to come. As investigators pieced together the events, it became clear that Alvarez's actions were not as simple as a failed suicide attempt. Some believed he intended to cause the crash without necessarily harming himself, perhaps driven by a twisted desire to be noticed or to express his inner turmoil in the most dramatic, destructive way imaginable. Alvarez had reportedly attempted suicide before, but the scale of what happened that morning transcended any prior acts of self-harm. The train wreck, though technically a mechanical failure in terms of the vehicles involved, was rooted in human intent. And human tragedy, unlike machinery, leaves scars that never heal. The courtroom drama was intense. Families of the victims confronted Alvarez, their words filled with grief, anger, and disbelief. Elaine Parent-Severs, sister of William Parent, demanded that Alvarez look at her, a moment that would forever be etched in the memories of those present. "You did a very bad and stupid thing. If you have tried to cause pain and anguish, you have definitely succeeded," she said. Hope Alcala, mother of Manuel Alcala, could not forgive him, stating plainly that she did not believe in his remorse. Others, like Lean Wiley, widow of Don Wiley, offered a complicated mix of grief and forgiveness, acknowledging the unimaginable personal loss while attempting to separate intent from accident. The emotions in that courtroom swung wildly, from rage to sorrow, exposing the raw humanity of those left behind and the irreversibility of Alvarez's actions. Beyond the courtroom, the incident sparked a national conversation about mental health, responsibility, and safety in public transportation. The configuration of Metrolink trains, often pushed from the rear by the locomotive, was scrutinized, with many claiming that it contributed to the severity of the crash. Safety protocols, emergency response, and the design of commuter systems were questioned, as Americans tried to comprehend how a single individual could set off a chain of events that devastated so many lives. In the aftermath, policies changed and awareness grew, but for the families and survivors, nothing could undo the horror they experienced in those terrifying minutes. The story of Juan Manuel Álvarez and the Glendale train crash is not just about tragedy. It is a stark reminder of how fragile life can be, how decisions in a single moment can ripple outward with unimaginable consequences. It is about ordinary people caught in extraordinary circumstances, and how a single act of recklessness, or perhaps a cry for help gone horribly wrong, can forever alter the course of countless lives. It is a story that demands to be remembered, a cautionary tale of despair, human error, and the unpredictable chain reaction that can arise from one person's choices. Even years later, the echoes of that day remain in Glendale, in the families of those lost, in the hearts of survivors, and in the minds of anyone who learns about what happened. This is why we tell these stories on Shocking Facts, not just to shock, but to remember, to learn, and to reflect on the fragile nature of our existence. Because in the end, the story of the Metrolink killer of Juan Manuel Álvarez is not just about one man. It is about life, death, human vulnerability, and the consequences of our actions. Every name, every life, every detail matters. 11 people died that morning, and countless others were changed forever. But through stories like this, their memories live on. Their lives are acknowledged, and their experiences remind us to pay attention, to be careful, and to value every moment. So, as we close this chapter of history, remember the lessons hidden within tragedy. The world can be a dangerous place, and sometimes, disaster comes from the most unexpected sources. Stay aware, stay alert, and never forget the stories that shape our understanding of human nature. And if you want to keep discovering more unbelievable, shocking, and true stories that will leave you questioning the world around you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us on Shocking Facts. We just got our first subscriber, and now we're ready to keep going, diving deeper into the dark and fascinating corners of reality. Don't miss out on what's coming next, because the world is full of shocking truths waiting to be uncovered, and we're just getting started.